I'm not like
Good
going back
evening,
and forth between
everybody.
names or anything.
Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Ann Savage. I am the president of the City School District of Albany Board of Education. On behalf of the board, I welcome you all to our meeting. The audio from tonight is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to the general public on our Board Docs platform. You may also notice a camera in the back of the room. We welcome Blue Sky Projects here. They are doing some video about school boards and effective school board and superintendent relations and equity in schools. And they found Albany, and here we are, and we'll see how their videos come out. We're looking forward to that. Thank you for being here tonight. If you, any members of the public, would like to address the board in public comment, there is a sign-up sheet on the table next to the lovely assembly person in the pink dress back there, and you will need to sign up. Now is a good time to do that. On that table, you will also find the papers of the documents that we'll be discussing tonight. If you would like them in paper copy, there are also digital devices so that if you prefer to look at things digitally, you can do them on our device, or if you'd like to do that on your device, you can find the meeting at albanyschools.org/BOE and click on the agendas button. We invite those of you who choose to say the Pledge of Allegiance to stand with us as we say the pledge. We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In addition to saying the Pledge of Allegiance, we always start our meetings by saying and focusing our energy with the mission of the City School District of Albany, which is to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Now, normally, everyone knows that I say, Superintendent Adams, do you have a report for us? But I'm not going to say that tonight because we have with us tonight three very special honored guests. We have Senator Neil Breslin, Assemblyperson Pat Fahey, and Assemblyperson John McDonald, who are here to give us their annual take on where we are with the state budget. I cannot tell you how much we appreciate the fact that you three make the time to be with us every year. You know how important the state budget is to the success of every school district in the state, and the fact that you're willing to make that special time to meet with school boards is extremely appreciated by us, and I'm sure by other boards in your district. So with that, I'd like to just turn the time over to you, and you can say, do things however you like. Mr. Breslin, would you like to start?
Okay. Thank you for allowing us to be here, and to the board, as I frequently say when I meet with boards, that you get all of the abuse that we get, but we get paid for it. So that doesn't help you at all. So we're in a year where there's over a $6 billion shortfall. As the insurance chair in the Senate, I'm trying to make sure it doesn't hurt patients and people in nursing homes and people in hospitals. But this governor has an intuitive way of striking with, I shouldn't even go there, but it's a difficult process. With the school aid runs, I thought at least for the districts I have, I thought that there wasn't any major problems. And with Albany High in particular, we need more money. We need more money for, John and I both represent 5 cities, similar problems. And as Ann, you and I just chatted, Troy has done so much with the community school, with extra dollars to make sure we assist in the progress of students. And what do you know, when we put extra money in, it did very well. So I believe that there's going to be an amount of money that's going to be coming in the negotiations for education. If I could pinpoint that amount, I'd be disingenuous. What I can say is, I think for John and Pat and myself, is that our focus will be to make sure it isn't spread, as it's been so many times, over all the schools. It should be spread over the schools that need it most, period. End of discussion. And we also just chatted about the consolidation of foundation aid. I think from my perspective, I've found that it was probably done because they thought if they lumped everything in at once, it would be much easier. I think the opposite has been I think the general consensus among the school districts I represent. John and Pat are just phenomenal to work with. Pat, of course, just learned at the feet of Albany High School and the other Albany schools, and she passes it on to us. To me, Pat is a mentor. And a little bit older than I am, but I still, seriously, it's wonderful working with John and Pat, and I'm excited to be able to now listen to John and Pat. But rest assured, all three of us, I think if we took a vote, Albany High comes first.
Do you want to go, or do you want me to go? I usually let the dean. We always let the dean of the delegation go first, and I defer to the lady, and then I'll do cleanup. Why don't we do that? Are you ready?
Okay, sure.
I'll just pick up
I'm
the
not going to
pieces.
argue. We'll keep
I'll
moving
pick up the
here.
pieces.
Thank you, everybody. He's the 108th, so often we say the 108th district should speak. So actually, we take turns, and I'm the 109th district, which the 108th is about a block away from here. You're in the 109th, but as you know, for those of you that do know the split, it's a bit of a squirrely line. We have a PowerPoint that we put together last week for a budget briefing. So I'm just gonna hand that out and hand some behind me. Sorry, I didn't get here in time, but I don't know if there's an interest in passing some of those. I hope I have enough copies. But it just will give you a sense. I think it's helpful to just glance at, because it gives a perspective on the entire budget. And I just want to note just a couple of overarching issues. This is my 8th year. John and I actually came in together. Somebody McDonald and I came in together. This is the first year that we haven't had the bank settlements, which were as a result of the recession and as a result of the housing crisis, the foreclosure crisis, I should say, along with other things. But for the last few years, we've had multi-billions of dollars in those settlements that have really helped cushion and helped us with, putting in over $7 billion, restoring all the GEA, and overall putting in over $7 billion into K-12, pre-K 12 education. It really is unprecedented. So that's the glass half full, right? That we've had this unprecedented growth. This is the first year in the 8 years, or I'm in my 8th year, that we have not had that. And this year, unfortunately, it's an over $6 billion shortfall deficit, whatever you want to call it, all in Medicaid. So this year, often education dominates the agenda. It is the issue that is best attended by members. It's the one that most members are vocal on. This year, I will say the big competition is from healthcare because of this serious shortfall. So that said, you'll see on, I think it's page, it's midway in here, you'll see what we put in on education. It's slide 9 that talks about a few of the issues. I know I don't need to tell any of you, but just very briefly, the Regents requested over $2 billion, an increase this year. It's almost, it's an annual dance, if you will, and I'm not trying to make light of it. The governor has put in $826 million of that. We often end up, in the past 7 years, we have ended up coming much closer to what the Regents request. And I think, as Senator Breslin just alluded to, that is certainly where the interest is in this year, is trying to get as close to possible as what the Regents have requested. Just to echo again what Senator Breslin said, there is in our body, and I think in both, there's no, we are finding little support for adding in those expense-based aids. And so that's the good news. On slide 10, you'll see, and this is something we hadn't done the math on, but Mr. McDonald's office had reached out, and staff just responded back that in just the last 6 years, we've put in a 35% increase into the Albany schools, which is, I have to say, even I didn't realize it was that high. It's I think we're all extraordinarily proud of that. I mean, as I know I've lamented to a few of you, my years on the school board, it was a cut every year because I was elected immediately after the 9/11, after 9/11 in 2001. So it was a cut every year. So while it's great news, we know there were shortfalls after the last recession, and we still know that there are needs, and certainly we haven't gone as far. There are others requesting for multi-billions, but I want to try to focus on the good news and to let you know the support continues. Pre-K alone is, it's a personal issue of mine, and it was even back on my school board days, so I would like to see us do more. The same with after school. There's a host of other programs. I don't want to take all the slides. I'm going to stop there and turn it over to John McDonald, but we really welcome your questions and your comments. Thank you again for having us. It really is, it's always a trip down memory lane. My youngest graduated 2 years ago. Yeah, no thanks, Ann, don't want to trade. But my youngest graduated now over 2 years ago, and so I have to say it's always a real pleasure to be back, and I know she still misses it here. So thank you for having us.
So to Ann and to you and the board, thank you for the opportunity here, and also thank you for your service to the community. As Neil had alluded to, it's the compensation isn't satisfaction, and hopefully this budget will bring you some satisfaction. And to Quita and the team, thank you for the great work that you do. We've been very impressed, because I think the board knows this, but it's not as if this just starts come January. This is an ongoing process. It's almost a continuous year of dialogue of what the needs are, what the concerns are, and we know that more than ever before, the school is really the home for these students, and they're bringing a lot of issues into the building, which makes the traditional education system that much more challenging. And I think that's the message that both Pat, myself, and Neil, working together as a team, try to bring to our leadership, is that we have districts that have traditionally not been successful with securing aid, although the last 7 years have been a step in the right direction. But we also know the demands you have are much greater than ever before. And it's interesting because Neil started off talking about Medicaid and the healthcare budget. He's the insurance chair. He knows this inside and out. Pat referenced, the $6.1 billion deficit, which is broken up on the operating and another 4.1 on the Medicaid. But I just want to mention that we're very cognizant of the fact that the Medicaid budget, we need to be very considerate of how we approach that, because that will have a ancillary impact on the students' lives, one way or the other. Granted, the majority of the issues are in the long-term care arena, which is more difficult to deal with, but we know in behavioral health it's a major challenge. And we know that there are many other providers and partners that you work with that rely on sufficient Medicaid funding to allow students who may not work out traditionally well in the classroom here that need these type of programs. And if not, those programs are successful, they're back here. It makes it more challenging. So, as you know, when the budget came out, we look at the runs the first time and like, oh, geez, it's over 3%. That's a step. And then we found out that a lot of consolidation was going on, the transportation aid with the cap, and it's actually refreshing, I would think. I can't speak for Neil's conference. I have a gut feeling it was the same way as it was with ours, behind closed doors. The real revolt, and basically, no way are this going to happen type thing. So our focus is to basically push back and defeat this consolidation, this cap on transportation, and then, once again, drive more money to the districts that need it the most. And obviously, the Albany School District is high up on that list. So it's a process, to kind of, I'm fortunate enough to have 10 other districts to go visit, so I kind of got my little schedule down, so I'll share it with you, because the same schedule for all of us. On or around February 29th or March 1st, the legislature and the executive will come up with a idea of here's what we're going to work with financially. Here's where our numbers are going to be, which is important. If you don't have a revenue figure to work with, it's hard to figure out the rest of the expenses. On around March 14th or 18th, we will be submitting our One House bills, which will lay out our priorities. We use the word aspirational sometimes because we know that it has some things in there we know aren't going to happen, but it's a statement of our principles. Then the conference committees start, and then the game is on. And come sometime March 31st or April 1st in the wee hours of the morning, Kawita will get a note, just like many other superintendents, of here's where our numbers fell, but hopefully it's be numbers that are acceptable and help you move the agenda forward. At a minimum, it's going to give you some surety of what you're going to be bringing to the voters in May. So with that, this is probably more importantly for us to zip it and to entertain any questions or comments that you may have.
So again, we thank you guys for being here. I know we have some questions because we always have questions, and I don't think they'll be unfamiliar to you. One of the things we've done over the last several years is become fairly streamlined in our legislative priorities. We try to be very clear about what it is that we really need, and so I think some of my colleagues have questions along those lines. Ellen, were you going to ask the first question?
Sure. You have gone a long way toward answering some of this question, but I still want to put it out there clearly. We are so thankful for what all three of you have done over the past few years in increasing the funding that goes to Albany. But we're still funding a greater percentage of our educational system with local property taxes than cities like Troy and Schenectady. And that's kind of compounded by the fact that so much of our real estate is state or government owned or off the payroll. I know that the budget is trying to focus on the high needs schools, and I know it's got an increase for us, but it's only about 3% this year. And my question is, do you think that there might be room in the budget to get us a little more and try to get us some more of what we should be allocated under the foundation aid formula?
That's a great question, and that was something that honestly drove me crazy my entire tenure on the school board. So that's why I'm proud that we've at least moved the needle in the right direction. There's a lot of talk about changing the formula, as Senator Breslin alluded to in his opening comments. I am not sure I'm just trying to be my blunt self, so don't kill the messenger. My crystal ball tells me we're not going to make as much progress this year because you need money. You need money to really do that. And the formula has been in place for a number of years now, and there's only going to be so much money to go up. And traditionally, and I can only gauge on what we've done in the past, very few districts see a loss of money. And in order to keep some districts from losing, there's only so much to make sure most are increasing. And then you have many extenuating circumstances this year. Often we have Yonkers just about every year, and I'm not trying to pick on any city, because each one. We always say Albany is unique. As you know, we go to bat to get the $12.5 million every year for the city of Albany. So I like to use the word unique. So I'm not here to pick on any school district, but in the past we have seen $50 million shortfalls in the Yonkers School District. And we've helped to restore some of that with a lot of work. This year, I don't know what Yonkers' shortfall is, but I will tell you this year the one catching a lot of attention is Rochester. And Rochester was at $40 million. Even by New York standards, again, not trying to sugarcoat this, that's a big number. That's just the Rochester schools. So now, as of today, or was it yesterday, I understand that's down to $35 million. So those are the types of things, again, out of a $2.1 billion budget, and that's, we're not there yet. Right now we're at $826 million. We need to pull out those expense-based aids, that brings us even further down to restore. And then when you have some school districts where there is a crisis, now as you know, they're going to appoint, they're not going into receiver, a monitor, thank you. They won't, there's been calls to put them into receivership. That is not something that our body is going to be supporting, but they will have a monitor, as I understand, or that's what's being negotiated. So I would hope we're not gonna come back here next year and say that. But I'm just trying, again, that's part of why we passed out the PowerPoint, to just give you a perspective of the push and pull on this. but I hear you. It is, when I compare us to Buffalo, I always compare property taxes with colleagues. We are double the property taxes of those in Buffalo and with comparable housing values. So it's the formula. Nobody ever said it was fair. It's just that it's been there, and it's hard without having serious increases. It's a hard one to share. So sorry to give a long-winded answer there, Ellen, but it's a maddening issue. I think the needs are absolutely here. I think you've done a great job of justifying them. That doesn't, and we've done a great job of moving the needle. But how much we can make a formula more fair, and I turn to my colleagues on that. I'm just trying to be cautious, I guess, in my answer. Or I don't want to raise unrealistic hopes on that. But again, I'm as Mr. McDonald said, the consensus from members in the assembly. We just caucused on these issues, some of these issues yesterday. By and large, it's all about trying to hit that to the regent's request.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody else has anything.
Who was going to do the second question? Was that you? We were going to do Hassan. Mr. El-Manyawi, I don't know that all of you know Mr. El-Manyawi, our newest board member. We are back to a board of 7 after Ms. Lang has moved over to the governor's office. So we are happy to have him and welcome him to this new arena.
Thank you, Anne. And thank you guys for coming tonight. I wanted to give Assemblywoman Fahey a particular thank you for introducing the bill to amend the child safety zone law to include vacant properties and crime rates for the criteria. Transportation is obviously very important for our families, and it's critical to address issues of chronic absenteeism. And we really believe that the state should view transportation dollars as a way to address inequities. So right now it's 1.5 miles. Isn't a lot for a family with a car, but for a family that relies on city bus or walking, it's a very big distance, especially on days like today and other days that are terribly snowy. Is there anything that we can do to help you guys get this bill passed this year?
Talk to your predecessor.
Speak of the devil, she just came in.
No pressure there, mind you. Sorry, go ahead.
Speaking of throwing somebody under the bus.
No, she knows. And she's been a wonderful advocate in all seriousness. Thank you. I will say we've had some help on that issue from NYSET and others. The whole transportation issue is a maddening one for me. I've had the bill, I think, with Senator Breslin for the last 6 years to do pre-K transportation. We give our kids a slot, and we give them no way to get there. And it clearly impacts low-income communities or those without a car. And I actually just talked about this in conference yesterday. I'm hoping last year we were able to get it in the Assembly one House bill, but because it costs millions of dollars to add pre-K transportation, we've been unable to get it across the board because it's a big number. The child safety zones, because we have, by the way, huge kudos to everyone for the creativeness of coming up with that to try to at least address where the most serious needs are to get around this 1.5 miles on the state reimbursement. But now that we have more help on it, I'm a little more optimistic. In the past, because there's no way to judge the pushback I've received on that, again, to be as blunt as I can be on this, is that because it's a hard number to quantify by changing that, we've had a difficult time getting some traction. But I have heard from some of the groups. It's very much on the radar screen of NYSET and the teachers. So the more I can make this not an Albany issue, the more success all three of us will have on this. So we're getting traction. I'm hoping we're getting traction on the pre-K transportation. But again, none of those come for free, and that's what we're up against, is trying to push it. From a fairness, I think it's impossible to argue. I will tell you, 2 of my 4 years on the school board, I had the motion to bring it before the voters to lower the 1.5 miles for the Albany voters down to either 3/4 mile or a mile, and I couldn't get 4 votes on the Albany School Board at that time. So, so transportation's been a big issue for me for as long as I've been in Albany, quite frankly. But please, keep talking it up. Talk to the Superintendent's Association, the School Boards Associations, your administrators. I think everybody raising awareness, because unfortunately, when you first bring up child safety zones or transportation safety zones, it meets with a little confusion. I've also asked for a pilot, by the way. If we can't do it across the board, could we just do a pilot and get some costs for Albany? And again, nothing against our other cities that have serious needs on this issue, but since we're unable to quantify it, and that's the pushback like from SCD and others that we've received on this, especially last year, I've asked if we could even do a pilot on it to get it moving.
That would be fantastic.
Thank you.
And
Ms. Smith?
welcome.
Great, thank you. Again, thank you, all three of you, for being here. We look forward to this every year, and especially your humor, Senator Breslin. Thank you. I wanted to just ask a question. This is a UPK question. And thank you for your advocacy of funds for this program. And we've been doing this as well for several years, trying to get an increase in UPK funding, per student funding. The amount has been flat for some time. As a result, the early adopting high needs districts like ours are not getting nearly as much funding as districts that added seats later. We're thrilled to see a focus on pre-K throughout the state, and we see the success of our pre-K initiatives here. But at the low rate we are funded, even with our contribution from the general fund, we have incredibly high rate of teacher turnover. Is there any hope of getting even a small increase in the UPK per pupil allocation?
There's just been more discussion this year, but with the shortfall, I'm not sure it's going to happen. And I don't know whether the discussion, I know that 3 or 4 times a week I have a daughter who's with the Schuyler Center for Advocacy. She tells me about it, and maybe that's the volume level I've received. But no, I think it's an understanding about the importance of the pre-K funding, the ultimate importance, and without that funding, the ultimate consequences of not funding it. So I know the 3 of us are very sensitive about it, and we're, again, sensitive about it because of the cities we represent and the areas we represent, to make sure that I just, and I'm repeating again, Ann, I looked at those numbers for the low-need school districts, and the per pupil dollar cost, and not even getting into the splits on them. It's embarrassing. It's disgusting. It makes no sense to me at all. And I told my children and grandchildren the only reason I'm a legislator is to make the world a little fairer. That does not make the world fair, and it should be the opposite direction. So we're keeping up the pressure. I know in our House, Senator Meyer from Westchester has been phenomenal. I go to her with problems, we sit and talk about them, and she edges them forward. But we're restrained by what the governor tells us, and it is essentially the governor telling us what the final allocations will be. And I might add, when you talked about, when Pat talked about her background, I'll just remind particularly the younger members that my mother retired as a school teacher at Albany High. My sister retired as a school teacher at Albany High. And my mother, I just was thinking about it, it was the old Albany High, unfortunately. And my mother walked from Morris Street to Barger Street to teach school every day after getting 6 kids out to school.
The only thing to add to that, Vicki, too, and what Neil mentioned in the Senate's the same in the Assembly. There is more chatter. There's more discussion. Part of the interesting dynamic is, and not that the district should be penalized for this, but there are still many districts throughout the state who don't have it. And there are many members that are getting more vocal because they know the benefit, because of groups like the Schuyler Center that will remind us how important it is. So that's kind of a build out we've got to work through as well. We still have schools that don't have full day kindergarten. Hard to believe, but it's the truth, and that's the oddity we're at. And fortunately, leadership of the board and the administration, but also the support of the taxpayers, you're out in front, and that's great. And we recognize very clearly there's a delta that we need to try to fix.
Not to belabor this, just one quick comment on a positive level. One, I don't know if we're going to fix the disadvantage. You guys, you're penalized for being out there first, one of the first with the pre-K. But I will say there is a growing recognition of the fact that New York City, about 5 or 6 years ago, when they did true universal pre-K across the city, that has been wildly successful. And the numbers are bearing it out. So I often, we say penny wise and pound foolish on a lot of issues, but this is one in particular. I often quote, because I remember it from years ago, every kindergarten teacher I ever met will say they can pick out a child who's been in pre-K the first day of school. They don't need to look at records. They don't need to look at anything. They know who's been through a pre-K system. And so I think that is helping to bolster the recognition that this is a true, it's as penny wise and pound foolish as anything in the budget by not making it universally available. Again, that doesn't help with fixing the fact that you are essentially penalized for being one of the first and with having one of the original programs. And the pushback there is that because we don't have it throughout the rest of the state, they want to wait to get to the others. And so it's, again, not fair, but it is gathering steam.
That's a step in the right direction
Yeah.
from our perspective. So I think we had one more question about community schools. Were you going to ask some board member Mann?
I was. Thank you all for being here. We want to acknowledge the support that the state has been giving to districts like ours for community schools, including the substantial increase proposed in the executive budget this year. We know that good community schools lead to improved student learning, stronger families and communities, and we're wondering, is there anything that you can do to add new dollars to community schools rather than simply carving it out of foundation aid? And again, it's greatly appreciated, all that you have done to try to grow the program.
So, from my perspective, that's where I'd rather see the resources go, to be honest with you, because it gives you some flexibility to address some of the non-traditional items. I don't know what happened to the mic. Maybe it's just that it's not close enough. There you go. From my perspective, I think that's the area we'd like to see greater investment in. I remember very clearly when the discussion of community schools came up. Pat and I had gotten on a bus with the governor to go up to a rally on minimum wage.
Minimum wage.
And I remember it was the SEIU bus, and I said to the governor, I said, Governor, it's really great that you're considering this, because it's kind of like what we've been doing in healthcare. We recognize that you need to treat the patient holistically, and you need to make sure there's programs. And now, as we know, we're hearing it not only from Albany, but from the many districts we represent, the challenge with behavioral health. And you need those supports, and it gives the administration some flexibility. So we like it. We think it gives us an opportunity to really help our most neediest districts, because as you know, we've been talking about the badly plagiarized foundation formula that's out there. So that's where a lot of our energy will be in this process, and we're finding out that it's been a good investment, and we thank you.
Again, a positive note on that, the fact that the governor's put in the additional $50 million, those have generally been what we call legislative ads. Those were legislative initiatives. So the fact that the governor from the start has put in the $50 million is a good sign that means in the three-way it's already got tremendous support. You're right, it's competing against the rest of foundation aid, but that also, so I hear what you were saying, but it also protects it. The fact, the more we can embed it, we need to get the aid up, the overall foundation aid, but the fact that it's embedded in there protects it in the long run too. So it's not an easy one to slide when we, should we hit another serious downfall. So it's good and bad, but the good news is this year, the fact that it's in there, that means it's no longer legislative, us trying to, what we call, buy it back from another program. We're starting ahead, and it's really terrific.
Well, Thank you all so much again for being here. John, did you have something you wanted to add there?
No,
Oh,
just
yeah,
talking
go
about the
ahead.
number.
Yeah,
The
you're right.
actual number proposed for next year, just to
For
start
Albany, I
is
was-
4.9 million.
Yeah, we have a very significant increase in community schools. It's a big chunk of the rest of our increase, right? Which is always difficult for us because
And
it
I
takes
should
away from our
also add
foundational.
too that the governor's the one who highlighted the differentials between the high needs districts and low needs districts.
Yeah.
And so he has an obligation to follow through.
Just like what you're talking about with the conversation about pre-K being more present in the halls that you're hearing, we feel that when we read the budget report out of the executive chamber, right? We see the language changing about equity and about the impact on high needs, and we see it happening, and we really do appreciate it.
One other thing I just want to mention, this is more for the bean counters, I guess.
Ms. Roaring, please pay attention now.
Well, for the ones who have to fill out that damn building formula and where the money's going and stuff, you know, there is a little double dynamic playing out now where the feds want this, state wants that. So it's not the largest part of the conversation, but we're recognizing that we're basically causing duplicative work. And if we can somehow make that work in a much more seamless way, it makes perfect sense. And the reason why it was reminded of is because the community schools is a way. This is why the governor likes it. You know, it's a way to provide additional support. But, you know, for a couple of years, not really districts like this, but the much larger city districts, there was a perception that some districts were not being fair to certain school communities. And, you know, at the end of the day, as much as it's caused a lot of heartache and work, I've actually talked to the business folks, and they said, you know what, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it actually made us remind us of where we have to prioritize, and that's important. It's not to say that people weren't trying to do the right thing, but sometimes you need to have it stare at you straight in the face before and say, oh, we're either moving in the right trail or we need to make a modification.
Absolutely, and we appreciated the opportunity to review that on the transparency report, and we're not at all surprised to see that Albany is doing exactly what we say we will, which is moving resources to our highest needs schools, and that is how our numbers played out because we live our values every day here in Albany. We very much appreciate you. We would love you to stay all night, but we also don't want to keep you. Is there anything else you felt like you needed to share with us, Mr. Breslin? Senator Breslin already has 1 foot out the door.
Yeah, he's good at that. Just one quick comment, because I mentioned taking full advantage of all the advocates. And I should say it's another thing, and maybe this time of year I need to look at the glass half full, or you just couldn't walk given all that's hitting us. But I really have to say, you really have tremendous advocates. It's something that has changed even in the last few years when when we came in, the schools are low performing or some of our highest need schools were just dismissed as failing schools. And I remember really saying my children are in those failing schools, and it really rubbed me raw just a few years ago. That rhetoric has really, really changed, and we've stopped slamming schools that are struggling, and I really, so I still wear it very proudly as a parent, but part of that has been the advocacy across the board, and so I said take full advantage of talking to your predecessor, but it's been great to see Jen Lang, your former colleague, really become a voice. We're a voice in the legislature, but to have such a strong voice in the executive wing has really made a difference, and it's those kind of things that get us away from the ugly or unhelpful rhetoric of just labeling schools or labeling students, and so even that we've come a far way on, just in my few years. So I know, no pressure here, Jen, but you're but it really is making a difference. So thanks for the tremendous advocacy that all of you do.
Before you leave, I just want to make sure I get a chance to thank you guys for meeting with us, with the government relations team, and for Senator Breslin yesterday for meeting with their AP government students, the next generation of legislators. And so.
That was much more rewarding to me than it was to them.
But I want to leave you with a
a great
question that that I have bought so many Mega Millions and lotto tickets, and I have never won. I haven't heard of any of my friends or people that I know of winning. That money is there somewhere.
Thank you again.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, good, if we're gonna do that, we'll do that, that's great.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm really not. I'm really not. At least put some lipstick on, so I don't look like I've been working all day.
Superintendent Adams, do you have a report for us?
Yes, I do have a report for you, and thank you so very much, Madam President, members of the board. I would also like to extend my thank you to our delegation and their support tonight and attending our meeting. All is appreciated. As you may have noticed, we have guests with some pretty sophisticated video equipment this evening. We would like to welcome Christine Christopher and Dave Marshall from Blue Sky Project Films. They have been in the district for a couple of days this week conducting several interviews for short films about our district's leadership in two very important areas. The first area is the equity inclusion work that we started this year. We are looking at how is that process going, knowing that we are not there yet and that we are in that process after we developed an equity policy. What are the steps that we're taking to actualize equity within our school district? And the second is the vital role that a well-functioning board plays in the success of our students. And we are in the process of building that structure. And how are we carrying out the things that we say we value in terms of our relationship, and how we move forward as a board, as cabinet, working together on behalf of our students. So Blue Sky Projects is based in Rochester, and it's taking a look at several important topics in education through the lens of what's working in various school districts across the state. The New York State School Boards Association recommended that our district be captured with the work that we're doing in these two areas. And we have engaged in a wide range of stakeholders to share their views. They've had the opportunity to talk to select teachers, administrators, students, parents, board members, and so it's a wide array of input that they've been able to receive for this project. Like all of our work, our efforts in these areas are always ongoing and evolving through our cycle of continuous improvement. I am so fortunate to be engaged in this work with all of you and with our administrators, teachers, staff, and throughout the district. We have much work to do, but it is gratifying to have this opportunity to share the progress that we are making. Now, the first step in our vision for transformation of the Albany High School campus is almost a reality. Under the leadership of Principal Jody Comerford and Assistant Superintendent Lori McKenna, our students and staff are in the process of moving into our new academic building and learning their way around. We will officially move in when we return from winter recess on February 24th. We are looking forward to celebrating the completion of the new building with our ribbon cutting ceremony and public tours on Saturday, February 22nd. So mark your calendars. Saturday, February 22nd. We have had a great response for the event. All of our tour groups for that morning are full. It will be a wonderful opportunity to share this major milestone with our community. The new building is truly amazing, and we hope that you will be able to join us to see for yourself. As we work to develop our budget proposal for the 2021 school year, this continues, and I had the opportunity on Tuesday to make the case for our top priorities during testimony before the joint legislative budget hearing on elementary and secondary education. I was grateful for this opportunity to make our case to our state leaders once again. Our top priorities include, continues to be the need of the state to reevaluate the foundation aid formula to provide funding equitably. These are the things that we have been looking for years, but we have now been able to quantify what that 45% would mean if we were to just go up to 55%. And so by putting those numbers out there and an exact percent, we're asking them to please look at that very carefully. Our focus in this area centers on the fiscal challenges that are unique to our school district and our city. We receive 45% of our total school funding through state aid, a significantly lower percentage than almost every other school district, which is similar to our demographics in upstate New York. Almost 2/3 of the property in our city is tax exempt. Much of it is because of our role as the state capital. My testimony also emphasized the following three areas verbally: amending the state's transportation law to expand the criteria for child safety zones, equitable pre-K funding for all of our school districts, and support for additional social and emotional staffing as we can support the state's worthy efforts to raise the age of criminal responsibility and also implement important reforms in all of the areas. In addition, part of my testimony was in writing, and the written testimony included support for ELL students, community school funding as categorical money due to the success of our program, and support to amend the New York's voting law. We have had a very, very busy week this week at the Capitol. A few of our Albany High School students were involved in legislative advocacy this week. Students from Sean Fitzsimmons' AP Government class visited the Capitol on Wednesday to advocate for the state's continued support for funds to help expand access to advanced coursework. The Times-Union highlighted our students' efforts with a story and photos on the front page of the Capital Region section in today's newspaper. I would like to commend our students and Mr. Fitzsimmons for their civic-minded efforts. And they did, as Dr. Chatour stated, they did meet with Senator Breslin. In other news, we are planning for half days of school on April 28th and June 23rd to meet the requirements of the New York State's new paid voting leave law. That's a mouthful. On April 22nd and June 23rd, they're both primary days in New York this year, and they're also regular days of instruction. While we fully support our employees' right to vote, our district does not have enough substitutes to account for the number of anticipated absences. As a result, the district is planning for school to be in session in the morning only on April 28th and June 23rd. The board approved this calendar change at our last board meeting in January. Please visit albanyschools.org for more information, including early dismissal times for students on these days. In addition, we've sent out an SNN to families so that they would be able to budget and govern their time accordingly. Finally, a reminder that all of our schools will be closed next week in observance of President's Day and winter recess. Our administrative offices at Harriet Gibbons Student Services Center will also be closed for the week. This includes central registration and transportation. Our administrative offices at Academy Park will be closed on Monday for President's Day and open for a normal schedule for the rest of the week. I hope everyone has an enjoyable and restful winter break. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Superintendent Adams. And we also hope you have a restful winter break. I know you can use that time, even though you're working. It's still less work than it is when the students are in session. So now is the time of our meeting that we welcome public comment. We always welcome input to the decisions we are making, both tonight in public comment and also by email, by phone, and by postal mail. Per our policy, we set up to about 30 minutes of our meeting to hear from district residents, parents, students, and other members of our community. We do reserve the right to, if the public comment were to extend beyond 30 minutes, to continue at the end of the meeting. We invite speakers to please stay for the balance of our meeting, and we invite everyone to consider coming to our meetings on a regular basis or listening in to the recorded meetings. It's always helpful to us when teachers, students, families, and other community members are knowledgeable about the decisions we are making and share their thoughts with us. People who are speaking tonight, which tonight is only Ms. Herring, as you make your remarks, please keep in mind that by law, information about individual students and specific district staff cannot be shared. Every student and every staff member deserves to know that concerns about them will never be aired in public. Also, we ask that you keep in mind that this public comment period is not the best place to first alert the district to a concern you have. We ask that you share concerns first with relevant staff, such as the teacher or principal. If you feel that concern is not addressed adequately, you may appeal to that person's supervisor up the chain of command, if necessary, to the superintendent. Many decisions made by the superintendent are then appealable to the board. Finally, please note that the board's policy is to not respond during the public comment period. If you need a response, we ask that you consider contacting us by email, phone, or postal mail. All of our contact information is available online. When I recognize you, I ask that you state your name and city of residence. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Ms. Wilson, our board secretary, will give you a 1-minute notice and a 10-second notice, and I will notify you if your time has expired. It is always a good idea to look up and make eye contact with the lovely Ms. Wilson so that it will not come as a surprise to you when your 3 minutes are up. So with that, I invite Ms. Herring to the microphone.
Thank you very much. I'm Dahlia Herring from Albany. Before I mention what I was planning on saying, I need to make a comment about what's happened in the beginning of this meeting. Some of you may know that since 1973, I have been on and off involved in school aid at the state governmental level, Division of Budget, actually the governor's office, DOB, and State Education Department, and have experienced how school districts handle their legislative advocacy. And I got to do this. I am so impressed with what you have done and the kind of work that you have done with regard to advocacy. And I thank you as a community member and as somebody who comes to you often complaining. I thank you for that. Thank you. But the reason I wanted to talk to you, you may already know this, but I wanted to kind of red flag it. The State Education Department, you probably know, is looking at pretty much of an overhaul of graduation requirements. So you all aware of that. What you may not know, or is relatively new news, is that they are conducting regional meetings to provide that input, and it looks like you do know about that. I applaud them. I am an old SED person for almost 25 years in that department, and that they're doing that is really important. I do not applaud them for the fact that with regard to our area, there is only one meeting, and it is located at the Hearst Center. And for those of you, you probably know this too, but I'll mention it March 18th at 5 p.m. At 645 Albany Shaker Road. I am appealing to you that I really think it is important that board members go to this meeting, that if at all possible, school district administration and school teachers, because you're the folks who know on the ground what the effect is of the state regulations. So that's my appeal to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and that ends public comment for the night. We now move to the part of our meeting we call routine consent. During this portion of the meeting, we approve routine matters for the district. These include routine items like contracts, field trips, personnel matters, and the like. Board members review each of these very carefully, but we vote on them as a group with no discussion, which allows us to use our meeting time more efficiently. Nonetheless, each board member has the option to set aside any routine consent item in order to require a separate discussion and a separate vote on that item. With that introduction, I will now entertain a motion to adopt the routine consent agenda. May I have a motion, Ms. Wilson, and a second by Dr. Chatoor. Are there any set-asides? Ms. Krejci.
I'd like to set aside number 22, please.
And can you just use the name as well, just so we're making sure we're all on the same page?
I'd like to set aside number 22 for the Soulfire Farm.
Okay. Are there any additional set-asides besides number 22, Soulfire Farm? All in favor of adopting the routine consent agenda, last number 22, Soulfire Farm? Ms. Krejci, did you care to vote on routine consent?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That is unanimous. And now I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the Soulfire Farm contract. Dr. Chatoor, seconded by Ms. Smith. Is there any discussion, Ms. Krejci?
I just loved what these people are. I loved the level of detail in this contract, and I loved what these what this organization is proposing to do, not just talking about gardening and healthy eating and agriculture, but talking about equity and then talking about student-led change and just student empowerment at that elementary school level. It is fabulous. I'm so happy that we're able to bring this together and give these students the resource that they need for empowerment. So thank you.
And with that enthusiastic support for it, all in favor of adopting that contract? That is unanimous. That brings us to the end of routine consent items tonight, and to my very favorite part of the agenda, where I get to turn the microphone over to the chair of the policy committee, Dr. Chator.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We have a short agenda on policy. We have 3 policies that are up for action today. We discussed them at the last board meeting. These include policy 8505, which is charging for school meals. Since we don't charge for school meals, we need to change the policy. 9180 was staff use of electronic devices, and 9260 was conditional appointment student safety. Any questions on any of those?
Does everyone feel comfortable taking these as a group, or do we need to separate them? Okay. All in favor of adopting these policies as proposed? Actually, I need a motion. Formally, a motion, Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Wilson. All in favor? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
We have another action, 2 other actions tonight. The first one is the calendar for next year. There has been a slight change to the calendar since we reviewed it. For those of you who don't come to our meetings frequently, we always talk about something in the meeting once and then act on it the next time. So we did discuss the calendar as well as those policies extensively last time, and there was one change to the calendar since the proposed calendar since last time, which is to move the parent-teacher conference day back to its traditional location as on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving per the memo, because of the need to get the report cards out in time, that the original date was not going to be conducive. I'm going to take a motion in a second, and then we'll see if there's any discussion. So a motion to adopt the calendar for next time, Ms. Mann, seconded by Ms. Krejci. Is there any questions or discussion on the calendar? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the calendar as proposed? That is unanimous. That brings us to another action item, which is the board goals. We talked about this fairly extensively last time. As superintendent mentioned, the board and cabinet work together in a cycle of continuous improvement, and part of our effort as a board is to adopt board goals each year to try and improve our own practice each and every single year. And so this set of board goals are goals for us, not goals for teachers or students or administrators, but goals for us. And so the goals themselves are in the other document, whoever is managing the mouse. This is sort of the presentation, but there is a set of goals in the other document, and I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt these goals. Ms. Smith, seconded by Mr. Elminyawi. Is there any discussion? All in favor of adopting the board goals as proposed? Excellent. That is unanimous. Now I will call everyone's attention to the fact that there's a name associated with each one of these goals. Please review the goals carefully and determine which one has your name next to it, and ensure that you spend a little time thinking about how you're going to get that done in 2020. Okay. And then the next thing on our agenda is the discussion item for the Grants and Program Development Division. That brings us to the end of the action portion of our agenda. In general, we take all of our actions at the beginning of the agenda. While it has happened, typically we do not take another we would not expect to take another action tonight. And we welcome to the lectern Ms. Eileen Leffler.
It's on. Oh, there we go. Well, good evening, board members, Superintendent Adams. It's not often I get to come up here and talk about the grants office. So just to get started, there's the district guiding principles. We are familiar with the vision, mission, and goals. The grants department mission is to support the vision, mission, and goals of the district. So there's an alignment. Brings us up to the division guiding principles. basically, the fundamental purpose of the department is to seek funding for programs that enhance the educational, emotional, and social needs of the City School District of Albany students in alignment with prioritized needs. So each year, we look at each of the divisions, and I collaborate with them to determine, after looking at the current data, what are our current needs and priorities for that year. Funding sources include competitive grants through federal, state, and private and foundational entities, as well as government entitlements. One of the things I wanted to talk about was that not just the program development side and the writing of the grants and getting the awards, is that once you do get an award, it comes with great responsibility. And so a large part of the responsibility of the grants department is to have strict oversight of the implementation of the programs and the expenditures so that it's aligned with the program and as it's been approved. This involves technical assistance to project coordinators, ensuring compliance with the requirements of the funder, and what I like to refer to as the auditing overseer, which is the Education Department General Administrative Regulations, but we call them EDGAR. And so the grants department is audited under EDGAR. And in 2014, they did an overhaul, and it's the Uniform Grant Guidance. We were just audited, actually, last year for the IDEA grants for that, and we just received notice that we passed everything with that. We had a few corrective actions. However, they were with some policies and procedures that were quite easy to take care of. We also had to fill out, which was good, they provided a template. They want a handbook for each grant, which is a little daunting and over the top, but we'll do it. And so the IDEA grant is the first one that has its own Uniform Grant Guidance Manual. And ASBO put out the template, so it was good to have that. When applying for grants, we seek to coordinate funding and programs to maximize efficiency and use of funds. We do have some flexibilities after we are awarded a grant to do some budget adjustments. Some funders understand that there are some shifts in what you proposed and what your reality is now once you're ready to implement. So we can, and with the entitlement grants, we can always do amendments as well. One of the best ways to coordinate that funding is through proactive program development, and people hear me say that a lot because I like to do the planning ahead of time, not to be reactionary for when grants get announced, because usually they're due in 4 to 6 weeks. So that's a little hard to do the program development around that. I know that some of the board members, when we did the onboarding, I talked about concept papers, so I'm a big proponent of that when we can fit it in, to kind of reach out through the different divisions, but also at the school level, what are some things you're looking to do so that we can write a concept paper. Concept paper is pretty much just an outline, if you will, of all of a grant's elements. So that we can have everything in there so that we can shop a foundation to look for the funding, or when an announcement comes out, we've got the elements and we just need to tweak it for the RFP. This slide shows some grant metrics for the last, since 16-17. So the total amount of grant funding annually is between $20 and $29 million, depending on basically some of the entitlement grants bring that up. The Community Schools Grant for Schuyler and the PSSG, Persistently Struggling Schools Grant for Hackett, have increased that in the last few years because they keep extending those grants, which is nice that the funding didn't go away because there were some problems with that funding at the outset. So, and it stopped for a little while. So we weren't able to actualize and use it all. So when they keep extending it, we're able to utilize that funding to do some creative programming. This next slide just gives a look at the levels of funding that go for each category. So every grant has a line item budget and a budget narrative, And as you can see, the majority of funding for last year and the current year, because that's what is depicted here, but if we went back years, we'd see a similar trend, is devoted to professional salaries and purchase services. Those professional salaries do reach students because it's primarily for student programs both during and after the school day, and also salaries for professional and curriculum development. Purchase services are those that are for contracted vendors to provide programs to students and families. The priorities for this school year include a focus on innovative grant opportunities to support student achievement, increased proactive program development in collaboration with all the divisions to secure funding for the prioritized needs that cannot be accommodated through the general fund, and heightened support and refinement of internal controls for grants oversight and management aligned to EDGAR. So on a daily basis, we're looking to improve those areas because on a daily basis, something arises that we need to address. So we want to make sure that we are tightening those up so that we have less of those on a daily basis. One of the things we also do in the grants office is a funding forecast. We keep an eye out on major component of the division is to look at grants.gov, state ed website, foundational entities. They provide a forecast of upcoming and anticipated grants that we seek to be informed about in advance. This allows us to conduct the funding analysis of the grant to make an informed decision on whether we apply or not. And part of that is to look at what our needs are, what our priorities are, and a large part of what I like to say is what is our capacity, because we can't apply. We are eligible for almost everything, but we can't apply for everything. We don't have the capacity. If the decision is made to apply, we have adequate time to develop programming then, if we're keeping an eye on the funding forecast, and do those concept papers and the program development out ahead of time. This is just a list and a snapshot of some of the things that we're working on now. I don't necessarily like the name of this division, but it's the COPS office from the U.S. Department of Justice. It's an SRO hiring program. We actually are not eligible to be a lead agency. Albany Police Department is, but we are going to work in partnership with them. They are pretty strained in their grant writing area, so we'll provide the grant writing services for that, but we'll meet with them and do it in collaboration. The Local Records Management Improvement Fund, also known as the Archives Grant, about 7 to 9 years ago, we received that grant a few years in a row. Each year they have a different focus of who they're going to prioritize funding. We didn't get it last year. What we found from the feedback was they were focusing on rural areas. So we're hopeful this year. We're able to work with the person right at the Archives Department, and she actually gives us some pointers on what would be helpful. Even though we didn't receive the funding for that, I just wanted to say that, I don't know, well, I guess it is Pupil Personnel Services. Carrie Canzoni Boal has done an incredible job of working to use some of the general funds that were put towards that, and actually some of her own budget lines to continue picking away at getting that organized. If you went into the basement of Harriet Gibbons, it's a different place than it was last year. And so we continue to work on that. We'll just be able to fast forward things if we were able to get this grant. I'm working with Dr. Wilson on the elementary enrichment concept paper for bringing an enrichment program that would benefit across all of our schools. We're working on, if you're familiar with, I think you are, Pine Hills has the Leader in Me program. They're one of the very few lighthouse designated district schools, I should say. But they, because they're a school in good standing, don't have the luxury of all of their school improvement grant funds and all the other kind of perks that came with being identified that way, which is an oxymoron. But so she's seeking to continue to be able to fund their subscription. You have to be a member in order to continue in that area. So that concept paper, and we have a foundation identified for both the elementary enrichment and the Pine Hills Leader in Me. Hydroponics and Freight Farm. We have actually in working with the Director of Curriculum Instruction, Karen Bechtel, and her secondary STEM supervisor, correct, Amanda Powers. She's put together a fabulous 5-year out with different phases for the hydroponics and freight farm. We do have some funding that I think we can be flexible with this current year to get some things started or to bring that further this year. But what she's put together is going to be incredible for a concept paper around shopping to different foundations for that funding. One of the things that's coming out is an early college high school cohort 6. That's kind of like our Smart Scholars grant, so we'll take a look at that. Teachers of Tomorrow we have another round of that coming out. And then we have a host of carryover that we need to do amendments for our title grants, and we're in the process of doing that right now. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much for being here with us tonight. We appreciate all the work you do and the way your office allows us to extend what we are able to do with the monies that we talked about tonight with the legislative team and our property tax dollars. We understand how valuable you are to the success of the overall enterprise. So thank you to you and your department for all of your hard work.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Board colleagues, as always, one question at a time so everybody gets a chance. Look at all these hands. Hands are flying all over the place. I think I saw Ms. Manns first.
I just wanted to comment how impressed I am in that we're so planful. Your department is so planful before. So rather than being reactionary, you know, we're not just chasing dollars. We're doing it in a very planful way, and I just think that's very positive. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Smith?
Thank you very much. This is always great to hear from you, so come more often. You said we, and I know that you work with pretty much everyone across the district, but who's the we, or how many we do we have in your department?
Well, the we is small, but that's okay. Because not only do I work with most everyone across the district, I get support from those folks too. So, you know, it's a large team effort when we're working on anything. So my department consists of my office manager and my senior account clerk. Okay. We had a full-time grant writer, probably right for the first, I think, 4 years that I was here, 4 or 5 years that I was here, and actually longer than that. It was probably about maybe 6 years because I went through 2 people. And the person that was here when I got here only stayed 3 years. And that seemed to be about the extent of how long they'd stay. And they were typically folks that were in macro social work and were returning to the workforce, and that was the way they wanted to try to do that. And every single one of them decided they wanted to go back to being a practicing social worker. I don't know what. So what I decided to do with that was to contract that out. And so we contract out with BOCES, actually. It saves money, and they're very, very responsive. So, and they assign us a grant writer, an exclusive grant writer. Unless we have more grants that we want to write at one time, then they will bring on another writer for us. I can't say enough about how great they've been.
Ms.
Appreciate
Gucci.
that very much. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask a question about the grant writing process. I know as a member of the board for the past few years, I've often gotten questions from community members about things we can do, and sometimes the comment is, there's grants available for this, and yet I have to say, yes, I'm sure there are, but we do have limited staff and can't pursue every grant that there may be availability for. But it seems a shame to leave money on the table if there's some there. Is there a way we can provide a template for members of the community that want to help to put together their own grant funding, grant applications that someone from the district reviews? Because I know there's people that if you said, help us apply for this, here's our template, I bet they would do it, and they might actually get some approval. I'm just trying to think creatively and find out if there's any way we can resource.
Are you talking about grant opportunities that come about that the community is interested in that would benefit the school district and they want to partner, and similar to the COPS SRO grant that I described?
Yes, similar to that. I think one of the ones was there's money from the DEC for projects for the environment that includes parklands located in the Hudson River estuary, for example, and there's been some suggestion that we could use that money for playgrounds. Or sometimes there's various grant opportunities available for healthier foods in the cafeteria, that kind of thing.
Yep, those, and we entertain those as well. So there are community members that bring grants to my attention. And whenever those grants come to my attention, the superintendent gets lots of emails from folks when those come about and forwards them on to me. I treat those the same way as we treat any of the other grants that come forward. We put them out there to see if it's in line with our priorities and some of the needs. If it's not, but yet we believe it would be something that would be beneficial, we go through the same process of doing the funding analysis. There's criteria that I kind of go through to say yes or no on whether or not, to help guide whether we apply for it or not. So we entertain those in the same way to make a determination of whether we would work to be a lead to help write the grant, even if we weren't the eligible entity to do so. We've done that with AFE before, because some you have to be a 501c3, 3C. And so, basically, like I said, we entertain those in the same way we do any others.
So what I'm hearing is members of the community that have that know of those types of grant opportunities should bring them to the superintendent, and she will bring them over to you. Okay, thank you very much. That gives me a way to direct these ideas.
Ms. Wilson.
I might have to hire somebody else, though, in order to weed through those, because now that we're going to do that, we might get a whole lot of them.
Ms. Wilson.
Thank you for your presentation. I had a question that's very similar to Ellen's. However, I was curious if there was any opportunity for us to file for grants as a group. What I mean by that is, for example, in the nonprofit sector, sometimes many organizations file together. So I was curious if many districts could file, like adjacent districts or things of that nature. For example, one application that I could think of is possibly with the epidemic of vaping with students, and possibly there could be money for like health promotions and things of that nature. So that was my question.
Yes, so it depends on the funder and who's putting out the funding, if they offer the opportunity for a consortium. And that's where multiple districts or entities can come together to apply for a group grant. Yep.
Dr. Chatur.
So my question was sort of tied to both the previous questions. It's more related to the Teachers of Tomorrow. I want to understand what that grant is about. And I was wondering if we could target we have great universities around here, right? And the teaching standards are changing. Can we partner with them and apply for some grants from the Department of Education where we have workshops? It's sort of like PD for our teachers. We're building the leaders of tomorrow. So I don't know which category it would fall under, but there might be opportunities out there where we partner with some of our neighboring university and other institutions and target these grants, sort of like what you're saying, going together with somebody.
So the Teachers of Tomorrow grant, Mr. Petrin gets the honor of overseeing that and working with that. It's for those hard-to-fill positions and providing tuition reimbursement or recruitment incentives. And they're very, they're just very prescribed, right? A certain amount of money for the recruitment over, and you can get it for so many years as long as you stay employed with the district and have a good evaluation, or if you have so many credits left to get to be provisionally certified, and you can get so much money each year as long as you continue to be employed and enrolled in successfully in a class and have a good evaluation. This next round of Teachers of Tomorrow is basically the same thing. Sometimes they identify different teaching areas that are the hard to fill. What I find with the Teachers of Tomorrow grant, that it's a little bit archaic in the way that it goes about providing those and how prescribed it is. But it doesn't allow for doing what you're suggesting.
Ms. Smith has just an add-on. Is that okay? Go ahead.
Yeah, I like your question. I was going to say, however, coming from the state, there are specific grants for universities, like the Teacher Opportunity Corps is such a program that allows universities to do teacher prep, and they can work with various districts. But I actually haven't looked at who's got a grant locally. But there are lots of those opportunities coming to higher ed institutions.
And to Ms. Smith's point, the state puts out those grants that the eligible entity is the institution of higher ed, and they need school districts to participate, and we get approached for those and have participated in those before.
Mr. El-Maniawi.
Thank you, and thank you for the work you do. It's very important. I actually had a question regarding the first page of the grant metrics. Simply put, I just see that there's anywhere between $3 and $5 million of a gap between expensed and budgeted across the few years that we see here. Is that by design, or is it just because we don't have enough time to utilize those extra monies?
It's a variety of things. Time is one of the factors. Oftentimes, grant awards come much later than what they anticipate that they're going to award them, and that makes it very challenging to implement in the way that we have proposed it, because what happens is that programs get started in a particular way, and we've already thought of a different way to go about it. Then we get the grant, and so it takes even longer to figure out how we're going to reboot, if you will. Another thing that happens is that we might not be able to find the staffing that we're looking for, and we hire late, so then that takes a hit to the salary and the benefits. Again, you're proposing a plan at a certain point in time, and by the time you get it, things are different. So that becomes challenging. Some of the vendors or the contractors that you're thinking that you're going to work with may not be available. When you actually go out to, and you're proposing a budget, correct, right? So when we implement our procurement policies to get bids competitively or quotes for the supplies, and they come in lower than anticipated, so that's another reason. Salaries, again, we might project to want to hire at a different level, yet we're restricted to maybe a lower level, depending on what qualifications the person comes with. So those are just some examples of why that happens. For some of the gaps that you see there, we do have carryover. So if carryover into 1920, if you see from that slide, of one of the amounts is we have about $2.5 million that we can bring in that's available to bring back over into the school year that we don't lose. Some of those other funds that are listed in there are also proposed budgets that aren't really grant award money or grant monies that you can apply for. It's a proposed budget for a program where you seek reimbursement. So you're getting all the reimbursement for what you've spent. It's just that they've over projected in the budget. So it's really not a gap. And I just didn't get into the detail of that slide to show those nuances. Mm-hmm.
Well, colleagues, does anyone have an additional question? If not, we thank you very much again for your work, for your presentation tonight, and for all the good you do for the children of the City School District of Albany with the work that you do.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Vanna.
An excellent job you did. Which brings us to our next discussion topic, which is, as always, the most important topic we talk about at this time of the year, which is the budget for next year, the 2020-2021 budget. I want to remind everyone, pertinent to our conversation with our legislators just now, any numbers that we look at tonight are really preliminary, because we at this point only have on the revenue side the executive budget, and we will not know what our real state aid numbers are until we get to the final school budget for the year. Mrs. Adams, did you want to set us up?
Well, I made a mistake earlier, and we had a group of teachers here, and they did leave, but I want to make sure that we acknowledge them tonight, and we will bring them back, of course. But we had 3 teachers here tonight who are our new nationally board certified teachers. And so we'll give them a round of applause. Juan Oliveri, Jessica Short, and Melissa Hurt were here. And we just want to acknowledge all the hard work because it is a lengthy process for them to go through in order to be nationally board certified. And so I wanted to make sure that we had it on record tonight, but we will absolutely bring them back so that you can see them face to face, and we congratulate them in that recognition. Thank you. So at this time, Ms. Roaring will start with our budget presentation. So thank you so very much.
Good evening. This evening, we're going to share out our initial rollover budget for the 2020-21 fiscal year. So we're going to start by reviewing our guiding principles. As you may be familiar with, I want to just reiterate that these will continue to guide the funding decisions that we make in the proposal that you will ultimately see. And looking at the budget calendar, the board will be receiving regular updates over the next 6 or 7 weeks before you're asked to approve a budget. A couple of dates of note. One was mentioned earlier. We anticipate finding final state aid around March 31st or April 1st. The budget hearing will be held on May 7th, and the vote will occur on May 19th. When we look at our rollover budget, we make a number of assumptions. These include continuation of existing programs and services, staffing and benefits under our current labor contracts, contractual obligations, operations of the district, as well as adjustments to specific budget lines to fund contractual obligations, align with 3-year cost average spending, and meeting our student needs. Rollover budgets do not include addressing mandates that require more resources, other items considered necessary for health, safety, and programming. Some of the key cost drivers as we look at our rollover budget for next year at this time include salary increases of almost $5 million. I do want to note in this year's budget, there were a number of half-year positions associated with the opening of the new wing at Albany High. Those positions have to be annualized and increased for next year's salary schedule, so that is part of this number. We have a number of increases in tuition that are about $1.9 million, benefits of just over $5 million at this time. Our rollover expense budget is a total of $275.8 million, a little under 6% over this year's. The revenue budget is just under $264 million at this time. We are continuing to look at the numbers and trying to identify some additional opportunities there. That increase is 1.37, which you'll notice is a difference. We have received notification of 40 retirements. 25 of them are in our teachers union and 12 in the support staff. Some of the budget variables that remain at this time. We are waiting for our final state aid numbers and hoping that those are improved. We are looking at our health insurance, and we will finalize those increases with our TPA, third-party administrator, at the end of March. Our tax cap will be submitted to the Office of the State Comptroller on March 1st, and that will come to you at the March 5th meeting, so you have an opportunity to see what that is. The tax levy is historically set by the board when you adopt your budget in April, and we're going to be continuing to look at the impact of those retirement notifications and other variables. The next steps include finalizing what our priorities are going to be for next year. We're going to be incorporating new information as it becomes available, continuing to review all of our projections and assumptions, responding to questions, incorporating feedback. We are going to be continuing our lobbying efforts right through to the end and review our February aid runs for any changes that may impact that revenue number we're currently working with. Any questions?
So board colleagues, of course, we're extremely very early in the budget season, and it is too early to be asking for, what's the impact of this on tax rate and all of those kinds of things that really become the critical questions as we come close to the time of budget adoption. So this is an early time to ask questions, but with that introduction, do people have questions at this point? Dr. Chatur.
Can you refresh me on the fiscal agent thing?
I'm sorry, what?
The fiscal agent. There's a fiscal agent fee that went up.
Yes, so along with our capital project work, our general fund budget has been supporting all of the fiscal costs associated with our fiscal advisors, our bond counsel, and the borrowing, and that is part of that increase, substantial part of that increase.
I wanted to ask just a little bit about the cost driver, on the cost, I think it's on the cost driver slide, you talk about potential mandates and other essential items. Obviously, we're already looking at a budget that's upside down, as we always are at this time of year, right? This is the normal state of a budget at this point. But is there anticipated substantial additional needs that are reflected in those items that we need to be anticipating an even larger gap because those have not yet been incorporated into the rollover budget?
At this time, on the instruction side of the house, we have not been made aware of any new mandates or anything like that. For example, last year, we had several laws that changed, which constituted mandates that we needed. But at this time, we have not been made aware of any mandates that would drive the cost. Concerns that we are looking at, we're looking at each of our division budgets and reviewing them very carefully for areas that maybe we can trim a little bit and even phase things out a little bit further. But we will be meeting individually with each division but each division leader, cabinet member, to go through those division budgets. Some things we may be able to adjust and some things we won't be able to because they're mission critical. But that analysis will be happening in the next few weeks.
Can I footnote that on a different area? As you know, we've had a number of environmental concerns that were raised this year. We have been continuing to look at ways that we can absorb and complete that work prior to the end of June so that wouldn't have an impact next year. But one potential item is our building condition survey that we will be required to complete this year. There will be at least a partial aid offset for that.
Any other questions at this early stage of the budget? Okay, thank you very much. We look forward to getting to the next phase of this in our next board meeting, which I'm actually kind of grateful that we have that extra week now because it'll give us time to get to a closer on the budget, even though it'll still be early. Let's see. So that brings us to board committee reports. Board committee chairs. Does anybody have a report? Ms. Smith. You should have a rather big budget facilities committee report, as we are.
I don't actually have a report, but I did want to just announce that we will be meeting on Tuesday, February 18th at 5:30. The meeting will take place on Tuesday here at Albany High, the Turner Construction Trailer at 5:30. We will also have a tour that's open to board members at 6 o'clock on that Tuesday. And I know there's a lot going on. Ms. Herring mentioned the graduation hearings that are going up, but we may be able to make some adjustments if you wanted to arrive earlier to have the tour. Maybe we could chat about that. But right now, as it stands, the meeting would be held at 5:30 with the tour followed at 6 o'clock.
Any other committee chairs would like to report? Dr. Chatur? Do you want to do policy first? No? Okay. Government relations. The main topic, which we have not met as a committee, but as we all know, because we adopted this over the last couple of board meetings, we are now affiliate member of the Conference of Big Five School Districts, which has been so far a very rewarding relationship. We had a lobby day with them last Monday where we met with Senator Mayer, who Senator Breslin mentioned, who's the chair of the Education Committee, which was a very interesting committee. She also was interested in considering our child safety zones as a pilot for Albany only for the budget next year. That was also her suggestion. So now we've heard it from the Assembly side and the Senate side. So that's very interesting, and I'm hopeful that perhaps we can get that in as a pilot. So overall, I think that was a good set of meetings. We met with a number of staff people and legislators that we had not met with previously. We're also getting good support from the Conference of Big Five in terms of additional analysis of the executive budget, different than the NSBA analysis, which we do continue to get, of course. And it's been so far, I think, very helpful. Of course, the truth will out at the end when we see how much money we actually have, because there was a significant investment in that relationship. That is not something they do as a courtesy for us. But so far, it does appear to be good. I know that we need to schedule the next government relations meeting, and I know we've been, Mr. Lesko and I have been exchanging some emails on that. There is one on the calendar in March, so we may just skip ahead to that one, but I don't have that date in my head at this time. Anything else I should have said, Dr. Chatur?
Nope, that was it for government relations. But I just wanted to point out on Sunday there was a capital conference for lobbying of all the school districts, and a lot of our board members were there to show support. And it was great meeting other school board members, and a lot of them have similar concerns, and so we have some unique concerns, and everything was well received.
Ms. Smith?
My colleagues reminded me also that on Saturday, Ms. Wilson and myself, along with Superintendent Adams, attended or participated in the New York State Caucus of Black School Board Members, and that was our second year in a row of participating with that body. And again, very, very helpful, and there's quite a bit of work that they will be doing, some of which will involve some legislative work, and I thought that might be a nice teaming up, if you will, with those districts. And I want to say, you know, sometimes when you're sitting on a board, you wonder how you compare, or what are other school districts like? How are they doing this and that? And I have to say that I'm just going to say, okay, I'm very proud of us. Okay, I'm very proud of us. We are doing a great deal that feels like almost like light years ahead in some respects. I know that's not always how we feel, because we know there's so much work to be done, but I just did want to give some kudos for our deliberativeness and purposefulness and our persistence in trying to be the best board we can for our students, for our teachers. So thank you.
I wanted to just acknowledge something that is new, which is that the Policy Committee did not meet in February. The Policy Committee has really achieved a point of, we are current on our policies. All of our policies have been reviewed over the last 3 years, and the set of policies that was before us in February were fairly nominal, and we were able to wrap those into the March meeting rather than having an unnecessary meeting, which is, I think, the first time we have not met because we really didn't feel that we needed to have a policy meeting. So that is, I think, a really good sign that the work of the Policy Committee continues to make good progress. Audit Committee did not meet this month. Anything from any of our liaisons from various committees, liaison, Hall of Fame, wellness, any liaison work that needs reporting on?
I've got some.
Oh, Mr. Elmanyawi.
So, Phillips Schuyler Achievement Academy is going to have a Black History celebration on Thursday, February 27th at 2 p.m. I will be going. Everyone else is invited as well, and I think there's something happening at the high school.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is not the liaison.
Ms. Wilson, can you just put your microphone on?
Albany High School's annual Black History celebration will be on Tuesday, February 25th at 6 p.m.
So we don't usually do school liaisons at that time, but there's not really any reason. Sometimes we do them as part of other business. It's really catch as catch can on there. But you're right, we normally do committee liaisons like to wellness or Hall of Fame, but it's fine either way. So I'm going to call that the end of committee reports. Is there? I'm sorry. Do you have something else on committee
It
reports?
wasn't a committee. I'm just
I'm
tagging.
going to go to other business
yes,
then.
ma'am.
So then, if it's okay, we'll move on to other business. Ms. Smith, do you have some other business?
Just to tag on to the event that you mentioned on the 20th. Yes. Well, actually, what I want to say is I think the one here at the high school is on the 25th. Am I right? There's a little bit of a conflict. I know that many of the board members will be headed to the NYSBA dinner. I myself will come here to the high school. I'm happy to represent you all if you desire, but I thought we should have it covered, and I'll be here.
Yeah, I hadn't looked at that invitation. I thought that was during the day. That's in the evening
Yes.
as well.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Roughly the
that's
same
okay.
time, I believe. An hour,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So one of the things that the Big Five does is a lobby dinner, which some of us have already committed to, which is in direct conflict. Okay, thank you for drawing us to that attention. Any other items of other business? May I have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Mann. All in favor? That is 8:11, and we are out.
It is really 8:11.